so excited for our conversation today. We are from the Mom Link, and today is Mental Health Mindset Corner Monday. And today we will be talking about drug abuse and how self-medicating can honestly affect people. And we're doing this in honor of National, what was it again? Oh my goodness, National.
International, I wrote it down, so I'm cheating. International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking. People first, stop stigma and discrimination, strengthen prevention.
Yes, and it's such a great topic, and I think we really have to talk about this. So before we get into our conversation, I would like you guys to introduce yourself.
You want to start, Mary Kim?
Sure. I am Mary Kim Farkas, and I'm an advocate for not only human rights, but the differently able community, domestic violence, as a multi-abuse champion as well, and mental health. And this topic is so personal to me because my brother was diagnosed at a young age, early 20s, with multiple mental illnesses, bipolar, schizophrenia, manic depressive. And it's been we're going on 30 years with his journey, and self-medication has been part of his journey. So I'm super excited that we are bringing awareness, right? And to break those stigmas. And I love that they have an international day. I'm so excited for this conversation. So take it away, Heather.
Same. Yeah, it's huge for me too, because in May, my older boys, their friend committed suicide, and he was severely addicted to drugs for years and years and years and years. And I've never really gotten into it myself. I mean, I've tapped into pot, for like a couple years just to see what the hype was all about. But I never really got into it. Like, it never really did that much to me. So, but watching my older boys have that experience where they care so much about somebody and they're trying their best to help them and to let them know how loved that they are and how you don't need that life. And, look, you have kids and you've got people that love you. We want you here, and they're just having these conversations all the time. And he decided that it was enough. And I think for me, from the outside perspective, what I see, and again, I'm not in this world, so I don't fully understand because I haven't lived it. But in my mind, I think to myself, gosh, drugs alter, again, this is my perspective, it seems to alter how you think so that you're not making educated, intelligent, in the present moment decisions. And it's almost like the drugs are thinking for you, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense. But and the reason why I say this is because when this kid was sober, he was fully present and a great friend and super into everything. My husband's brother also is an addict, and I have seen his brother when he's not high, and then I've seen him when he is, and it impacts the entire family. Like, it has broken up so much of our family. It's so sad. It is so sad. And so I'm really excited that we're having today's conversation. I'm happy that they've made an international day so that we can talk about this and bring more awareness to it, and just to let other users that might be watching this know that there's better ways to cope with things that are happening that maybe we can't control, or maybe we've made decisions that we are mad at ourselves for, and we feel a lot of guilt and shame. And so maybe we're covering it up with drugs or sex or whatever, we all have things that we've either gone through or whatever. So we're hoping that today's conversation is going to be one of those things that will give you guys hope, let you know that you're loved on. We love you. We don't know you personally, but we need you to know that you are loved, not just by us, but by God, your creator, your family and friends. And there is a better way. So I'll pass it back over to you, Deb. I would love to hear your thoughts on this as well.
Yeah, and even if we don't know you personally, if you ever feel the need to reach out to any one of us, we are always available. We'll be the listening ear. We will be there for you and we will help you in any way we possibly can because we truly do want to help people, especially ones that are dealing with the mental health. I mean, myself, I deal with anxiety. I have my adult life. So it would have been easy for me to fall into the self-medicating and the drugs and stuff. And the only thing that I ever tried, like you, Heather, was pot. I don't know that I really consider that a drug because it does have a lot of medicinal purposes, but I prefer the CBD because marijuana does alter your mind a little. So I'm not, I'm not a big proponent of it, but I am, if that makes sense. But what we're talking about today too is like the heroin, and what really scares me today is all this stuff with the fentanyl because you don't know. I mean, just the little things that are being laced with fentanyl and just somebody taking it once could be a death sentence. So it's really scary out there. And we think about, on top of having a drug problem or people self-medicating and using things like crack or, pills or whatever, you never know what it's laced with. And it just makes me really sad to see the amount of people that even just a first timer trying something, they're like, oh, I keep hearing about this, so let me try it. And they wind up either ODing and they're brought back with the Narcan, or they lose their life to the drugs because of that one, I just want to see how it feels. And that really scares me. So I
Yeah.
think it is important that we're having this conversation today. So Mary Kim, what would you like to add?
I love it. I think it's so important that we've been talking about empathy and respecting the person and understanding, right? And that is key. That's key for the family members because just like smoking, right? Nicotine is an addiction.
Yeah.
Even those vapors, right? Kids are using vapors, not realizing it's an addiction.
Mhm.
A drug is an addiction. There's stuff in there, but you're right, Debbie. They are lacing the stuff with not only fentanyl, but other like fake stuff, right? To do the
Yeah.
fill, right? Which is extremely dangerous. But I want to give like some statistics and from my own experience with my brother, a lot of times bipolar, schizophrenia, they do self-medicate using hard drugs like crack and cocaine. And it gets in their system. And then they're addicted to that because it makes them feel it's their way. However, messed up that may sound to us who don't do it, who are not in that situation, they feel like they're managing their symptoms because the medication a lot of them take or choose not to take because they're not mentally all 100% there because of whatever diagnosis that they're going through. It's their way of managing it, right? And we've all had our own managing uh tools that we've used, right? That probably weren't the best, right? You're dealing with losing like a relationship. I'm gonna go shopaholic, right? Or I'm gonna go find love in all the wrong places. And like those aren't healthy. You're addicted to them, but not in a way that your life, you can go to jail, you can like lose weight, you start stealing from family or other people, you do things out of your normal way of being. But it's
Mhm.
this thing that, and I'm talking from my experience as well, is that, a lot of family members, they don't understand, even if they know that someone has a diagnosis and like, oh, they're just a drug addict. No, they're self-medicating, and understanding, even though it doesn't make sense to us, there's like over 25% of people who do. And depression and anxiety, Debbie, which I know is your specialty, is a high rate of people with depression and anxiety that utilize self-medicating, either alcohol or drugs, and that could be prescription drugs, right? To
Mhm.
help balance that, right? And I've never been on these pills, so I don't know what effect it has, but I've heard my brother speak about it. I heard how he walks and differently. He's very slow motion. So before we can, I just want to go really quick about a lot of them happen during the manic phase of their state of mental health. um, Attempting to deal with past trauma, society anxiety, boredom, change of habits, and deliberately influencing their moods, coping mechanisms for their mental health condition. So, like I just shared, like those are the things that typically people self medicate for. And one last thing before I yield the mic, talking like we're on Clubhouse, and um, just before we judge, understand, and My brother, I learned about this in my early 20s, so I'm like going on 30 years as I started, is that because my brother, and this is a trigger warning, and everyone's trauma is differently, but most of you know that at the age of 12, I lost, my dad gained wings, my mom gained wings, my dad gained handcuffs. And my brother at the age of 13 uncovered his mom, and she was taken where she couldn't be like she was bludgeoned. And so he uncovered that morning and kept silent, because he grew up like, oh, if anything happens to us, you're the man of the house. And so he took that literally after seeing that, and he's haunted by the sound of that. And so we learned, during his diagnosis and talking to many doctors and therapists and stuff, that a traumatic situation happened. And traumatic doesn't have to be that, right? It could be as much as some people like traumatic as, oh my gosh, my son for a very long time changing rooms, even if the same people were in there, but it was in the same classroom. It's traumatic. So we're not here to define what traumatic means. It means for anybody. Just us having this conversation, it's like, just let's be empathetic. Let's do the research. Let's understand they're all human beings trying to manage life.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the end of the day, it may look different how I do or Debbie does or Heather does, but just try to understand. And I'll yield the mic.
Yeah, no, I really like that. For me, I really enjoy uncovering the root cause behind why so many of us are coping with many different things. I like to do that to myself.
Great.
Why, like Heather, why right now, 5 minutes ago, you didn't want a piece of fudge? No, it's true.
Yeah.
It's like, what happened in between you feeling super amazing and now 5 minutes has gone by and now all of a sudden you can't get fudge out of your brain and it's not going away until you put it in your mouth? Like what is happening that is having a trigger response? And I think for all of us, no matter if you are self-medicating or addicted to any substance, or even addicted to, there's so many addictions. Like, I mean, you could be addicted to even calling your friend when you and your husband are having a hard time instead of talking to your husband about what's really bothering you. So, I mean, there's so many different things, right? So I think that having the understanding of why we do what we do and bringing in more self-awareness will help so many individuals, I feel, not run to something instead of dealing with whatever it is head on. Because if you can face it head on, you won't feel that need as often to cover it up with whatever coping mechanism that you want to do. Food, sex, drugs, rock and roll. So let's just get brave. Like let's all take a step into courage today. And if that looks like hiring somebody to go through that process with you because maybe it's a little scary to do on your own, take the initiative and do that. That's what therapists like myself are here for. We're here for you to feel comfortable and safe, to have a place to uncover the things that need to be uncovered so that you can move beyond the self-medicating process. So back over.
And what I'm going to add to what you just said, Heather, is, we can always see what's wrong in other people, but the hardest person to look at is ourselves. That is the hardest person to face. You could face a lot of people in this world, but the hardest person to face is yourself. And once you can take that step back and really face yourself, that's half the battle right there. And then, going into and finding out, like, why am I feeling this way? What is causing this reaction, this emotion, this feeling of I need something else in its place? Once you uncover the root, then you can address it and come up with a different way to react or to help yourself or to be able to just cope with something, and you can come up with different coping mechanisms that are healthier and a
Right.
better option versus turning to the negative stuff, which you're actually just hurting yourself more with. So I'm loving this conversation, and I think that, it's an important conversation to have. And I think, when we know somebody that's going through a drug issue, have some kind of understanding and understand and respect that they are a person and they might not know why they're doing what they're doing, but give them that space to grow. And you can't force them to stop. But if you're there and they know that they have that support, eventually when they do have that, I've had enough, I'm going to work with you, or what, or not even just work with you, but just I want better for myself, then they'll be open to the change and the help and whatever's out there for them, because at this point then they've realized, okay, this isn't really the way that I need to be. This really isn't how I'm going to get through this. And I went through my own self-medicating period where I buried myself in a bottle. I'll be honest, I couldn't wait for that first drink at night and that last drink till I knocked myself out. But it got to the point where I was just like, this isn't doing anything for me. And I'm not going to be a better person if I stay in this place. And I just stopped drinking altogether. So it's put me in a better place. But it took a long time for me to face myself. It took a long time for me to realize, hey, this is not good. You can't be doing this. You're not going to get anywhere but back to the bottom of that bottle if you don't stop what you're doing. So it's important that once we realize it, that we address it. We find out what was causing it. We get to that root of that problem and just really hone in, make yourself better. Do what you have to do, whether it's read books on on self development, watch shows on self development. There's documentaries, there's books. I mean, there's so much out there. So that's what I would encourage somebody to do when you're in that place where you feel you need out. There's always a way.
Yeah, and I think we should talk about boundaries for
Oh,
the people that live with an addict, or the people that maybe the addict doesn't live with them, but they're close enough to where they have the option to come over to your house, because that's something that we have had to do with, for instance, my brother-in-law. There came a place where my teen boys were seeing their uncle come over to our house completely high, and all he would do is just sleep. He would
mhm.
sleep, and then the times that he was awake, he would just be the A word to everybody around. He was very, very, very angry. So for our family, to keep our family together and to not lose our own S, is we had to let him know, we love you so much. We believe that you deserve a better life than this. But until you believe it for yourself, and you're choosing different, healthier ways to cope with the fact that you and your dad don't have a great relationship like you want, because that was his root, or still is, uh, you can't come over here. And that was really, really, really hard. And
Mhm.
my husband, because he feels responsible for his brother, their dad left when they were very young, so my husband stepped into the father role. So for many, many years, he felt that response and that responsibility to coddle him, if you will, almost like make up for the fact that their dad wasn't there. So now I'm going to take care of you. But what that did was that put my husband in a very awkward situation, because it's like he wants to keep his relationship and not be the D word like their dad. So how do you kind of do that without like the boundaries being impacted? So I had to, even though I had to risk a fight with my husband because I'm a mom and I have to protect my babies, I
Mhm.
had to tell my husband, you can't have your brother come over here anymore. Not until he's walking a clean path. Because now it not only is it impacting you, it's impacting me, and it's impacting the children. And I don't want the kids to be exposed to that if I can help it as a mom. So I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on different ways to set up boundaries. When should we set up a boundary? How do we know when to do that for ourselves and for our other family members?
Oh, I sorry. I would love to go.
Yeah.
I love that we're talking about boundaries and community, right? Because it's the people that you're surrounded with. I want to give a couple of things, which I think will, for me, it just all works together, is that we need to have these conversations in families, first of all, right? We need to be honest to our kids about what they're seeing, right? Not like brush it off. Oh, that's just the way Johnny is, right?
No, you're
Right?
right.
We need to have these conversations so they're aware, right? And just being mindful as humans, because we prejudge, even if we say like I don't judge, but sometimes you're in different spaces and you're like, oh, this person looks like they're looking for trouble, right? And you're just like, you go into protection mode. But if we're aware of the signs and things, and if you heard like what happened in New York, there's a homeless guy, unmedicated, and if you're in New York, you know what an unmedicated human being looks like, and he was choked to death, right? And no one did anything but record it. And there's several people. There was a packed train. But hello, like if I was there, I would have gotten the guy off. Like, but it's just being aware. I'm not saying like whatever happens, but it's just being aware of people. And if you know your people, right? If you know your family members and their behavior changes out of nowhere,
Right.
it's because they're probably using some kind of substance, right? The way for boundaries for me is reach out to them at that stage, right? Don't pass it along. Oh, they're stressed or this. Have a conversation and have a safe space where people in your community can come to you and ask and say something without being judged. And if you're not sure, yes, the ladies, Debbie, Heather, and myself have shared some other tips. But at the end of the day, we're not equipped fully to know what they're diagnosed with, right? And to lead them to, it may not be a rehab, but most cities have social services departments where you can guide them or maybe take them with you. Like maybe if they're reaching out to you, go with them, right? To get them the help. Because most times people with mental illness, I'm fine. There's nothing wrong with me.
Right.
And setting boundaries, I had to learn that. There was a period when I left my 10-year relationship and I was like fully engulfed with work and my brother. And I was like, I was spent and I didn't have my kid then. And I was like in the dating world again, right? At 30. And I was like, I don't even want to be part of this life that I'm living, right? Who wants to manage this? Like, how am I expect someone's really got to love me to deal with all of this hotness mess, right? But and then I went on and I got my sister more involved and stuff, and I kind of like spread out the responsibilities. But when I had my son, my son is a boy who's born with Down syndrome, and I had to release it. I had to set clear boundaries because I couldn't manage my brother at my place with what he may do while I'm at work. Managing my kid, it was just too much. And I set my boundary, and he's been upset with me and mad for years, like 7 years but then also he decided to live homeless in New York City for 7 years and was blaming me that it was my fault. And I knew it because he wasn't understanding, but I had to set those boundaries for myself. Today he's still self-medicating, but he has a team now. There's an entire team, and we got him to be court ordered. So there's like, I say this to share anyone who's either knows someone or wants to help someone after you try to have a conversation with them. Every state, every community has laws that you can protect them. And if they are under 18, most cities, as an adult, if you are that caretaker, you have full control to get them the help. Once they're over 18, they can walk themselves out. Just some tips that I learned, but like having the tools, be that support person and help in many ways, but having these conversations to normalize and not be afraid, because most of them who are not medicated, they're very violent in their nature. Most of them are not physically violent, but they're outraged, right? That's how they express themselves, and they'll get in your face, but they're really harmless. But that's what I like to say as a boundary, and just ways for us to help, to have that empathy and to reach out to another human being.
Yeah, and I think that, boundaries have to come when it's going to affect you personally. Once it starts to affect you, that is the time that you need to come up with healthy boundaries for yourself. Because at the end of the day, while you're willing to help them and you're willing to be there for them, at the same time, you have to protect yourself and all that as well. So that's what I want to say about boundaries.
Well, yeah, because if we don't, we end up with panic disorder and depression, and we can even ourselves have like heart issues, mental health, like so many different mental health things on our end, just to deal with the fact that we're having to watch somebody, in our opinion, take their own life down,
Right.
and they're doing it slow. You know, that's the thing is like, um, from me, my personal perspective, and from the outside watching other people use drugs, I'm like, you're killing yourself slow. Very similar to like smoking cigarettes or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's very, very hard. It's hard. It's hard to watch, especially when you love, you know, those people, because they are, you know, they're family and friends, most of them. So
So true. It's hard to watch.
hmm
I
I'm
want
glad,
to
I'm glad we're having this conversation.
I want to say about boundaries. And I didn't really, in the beginning, I didn't know what boundaries. It wasn't a word or terminology back in 20 years old, so like 30 plus years ago. But my reason of being his person is because he protected me that morning. Because I remember when I was trying to find myself, I remembered I lost this memory that I was about to walk into that same room my brother was in. And so when he was diagnosed and literally left at my doorstep, the guardians that became our parents were like, "He's your brother. We don't know what to do with him." I came in like total protective, like, okay, well, now it's my turn, because I could have been in the same situation that he was in, right? And so there was no talk about boundaries. I was like, okay, well, I got you, right? You know?
Mhm.
And that kept me going, even on those hard days. Like, I wouldn't be me if I walked into that space, because I would not have been quiet, right?
Mhm.
Like, at all. Like, and I would not have been in a good space either. But, so there's reasons, like you shared, Heather, earlier, like getting to the reasons why we do things, right? And uncovering, like, why did I want that? Like, when I eat spicy food, I need a piece of chocolate. When I have an Italian hot bread with butter, I need to have coffee, right? It's not the same, but you know what I mean. Like, we have these things and how we function.
They're our daily habits. We're just,
Our daily habits, right?
yeah,
There's
we're used to doing them a certain way.
yeah. So that's what I want to say. There's reasons why, but unpacking that and understanding really makes us, okay, oh, it makes sense now. Or like, oh man, maybe I can change that, right? It's knowing and understanding that we
Yeah.
can make.
And I think for like the user, when you see and you get to yourself this place where you're like, this is not serving me. I've done this for years now. Nothing's changed. That's one thing. Another thing too, I think that would help someone that's in a user situation is, wow, who's the common denominator in all the stuff that I'm blaming? Maybe it's me.
And here's the thing.
No,
So,
maybe I need to take that time and see, like, what part of my life do I need to take more responsibility for? Because when we start doing that, a lot of times when we take that responsibility back to where it really belongs, we become more aware, and then we slowly start to feel that we don't have that need anymore to self-medicate, because really we don't have to cover up things through drugs or any other addiction, because we're angry at such and such and such person or whatever. Now it's like, oh, some of this stuff is my fault, and so if I have a clearer mind, then I can heal where the parts of my life that I need to heal from.
yeah, when somebody's dealing with addiction, you say when you said about nothing changes, things do change. They lose the people that they were closest with because nobody wants to be bothered with them. They
Yeah.
lose the friendships that they had. And next thing you know, they're surrounded by everybody that's doing the drugs like them.
Yes.
So while it's changed, it's gone the negative way versus addressing the problem and bringing your life back to a positive direction. So,
Agree.
I agree. One last thing I want to say, I got this a lot, like, oh well, I used to do that same drug back then and it didn't affect me, so they're an addict. It doesn't, just because you have a hint of marijuana or crack or heroin doesn't make you an addict. And I want to say that, this stigma, right? because I didn't get addicted to it, that means that you're just choosing to use it. And we all know, like, it's that chemical balance in our brain, this is my terminology, that makes us addicted to things, right? And it all looks differently to every person. So I just thought of that, like, that's a stigma that's out there too. Well, I used to do crack and I didn't get addicted, right? But everyone's chemical makeup is different. So that's also like non-judging based on what your experience has been, right?
No, it's true. That's very, very true. Well, this has been a great conversation, you guys. I'm so happy that we had it. We're here every single Monday, so we have different topics every Monday around mindset. Last week we had a special guest for Pride Month, so if you missed out on that conversation, just go back in the feed and you guys can watch last week's. Next week, I don't really know what we're talking about yet, but we'll be here at the same time, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern, and we would love to have you as part of the conversation. If you specialize, if you run your own business and you specialize in any area of mental health, whether you're a therapist, whether you're a coach, anything like that, a mentor, please reach out to us. We would love to spotlight you. We do bring guests onto this platform. We sometimes we like to call it our show. Every single Monday. So if you'd like to be spotlighted, if you feel like you have a topic around mental health that would benefit all the people that are, this video is being pushed out to YouTube and LinkedIn and Facebook, and as soon as Instagram, is able to go into restream, then we'll get it out to Instagram too. But please reach out to either one of us, myself, Debbie, or Mary Kim. We'd love to get you on our schedule.
Absolutely.
Do you guys have anything else you'd like to add before?
I just want to say that it's been a great conversation, and I do enjoy our conversations because we do bring so much, because we all just want to help and bring a normalization to this conversation that people don't have because they're afraid to talk about it. Well, stop being afraid, because we got you.
Yes, I love it.
Yes, I was just saying, like, we cannot talk enough about this, right? Because we know, like, the more we talk about it, we normalize it, make it, like, okay to talk about, because many of us grew up, we don't talk about those things. We're not supposed to talk about those things. BS. We're talking about it. And, reach out to us in any way that, we love to have you come on our segment, right? And it is our show, our Mom Link show, right, on mental health and awareness, breaking stigmas. And and actually next week we're not going to be here because it's 4th of July on the 3rd, but save your mark in your calendar. Was it the 10th? We'll be back.
Yes. Sounds amazing. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. We appreciate you. Have an amazing day. Bye.
Thank you. Have an amazing week. Ciao.